Hey everyone, and welcome to Classical Conversations Information Meeting for Homeschooling Middle School and beyond. My name is Heather Kaiser, and I'm going to be directing Challenge B next year, and I will tell you a little more about what that is in just a few minutes. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what Classical Conversations is for everyone starting at age 4. Um, so, Classical Conversations is a classical Christian education program, and with Classical Conversations we start at a very young age and work up. But you can join at any time along the way. As a matter of fact, myself and my son and my younger students just joined last year, and my son is currently an eighth grader going into ninth grade next year. So, the motto of Classical Conversations is to know God and to make Him known. And the way that we see that children learn best is with a classical model of education. And we fully believe that the parent is the best educator for their child because no one knows your child like you do. Um, so we believe that education is the responsibility of the family with support from others of like-minded faith and like-minded educational goals. And we believe the support of a community enhances our ability to fulfill our parental duties. Um, so we hold each other accountable. We work together and we walk together hand in hand through the formative years all the way up through the high school years, and our students often graduate with ACT and SAT scores well above those, and I'll get to those in just a minute. But the way that children learn, as we all know, is at a young age, they're in what we like to call the grammar stage. And this is a parroting stage of memorization and recitation. Um, where they're gaining knowledge, but they don't necessarily know what it is. Nursery rhymes, the ABC song. Remember that we all learned the ABC song before we learned the ABC. So we had them memorized before we could identify them. And then we moved into being able to identify them. Then we move into being able to put them together in words. Then we move into being able to tell other people exactly what they are and how to use them. Um, so the same thing happens with every subject that we learn as we grow. So from about age 2 or 3 until probably around the age of 8 or 9, children are in more of the grammar stage of learning. And this varies for every child. But in the grammar stage of learning, they are memorizing and reciting. And the way that looks in classical conversations is we have a morning program called Foundations. We meet one day a week with our community. And in the Foundations program, they're going to learn and memorize Latin endings. They're going to memorize where things are on the map. Um, they're going to memorize math facts, multiplication tables. They'll even memorize things like the distributive property is, and they'll be able to tell you. Now, they don't have a clue what this means. What happens is they memorize this for their first 6 years of learning, from age 4 through about age 11. Every year, they're going to go through these cycles and they're going to learn and memorize these facts: history facts, timeline facts, science facts, math facts, Latin facts, English grammar, parts of speech. They'll learn little songs that go with them. They'll play games. It's a really fun community day for kids from ages 4 and up. And when they learn all of this, they then apply this when they become a little bit older. So, and I'll explain how that works. They move then in at around age 9 or so into the dialectic phase, and that phase of learning, and they stay in the dialectic stage of learning until maybe around age 12, 13, 14ish, somewhere in there. And this is their thinking and questioning stage. This is where they start to say, well, why do we need these 8 parts of speech? Or why does a transitive verb have to have a direct object? Or why does the distributive property work like this? So they're going to take all of these facts that they've memorized in their grammar stage of learning, and they're going to start applying them and asking questions about them. And this is where challenge A and B enter into the latter phases of the dialectic stage as they are going into the middle school years around seventh grade. They will go into challenge A somewhere around age 12. It could be eighth grade. They go into challenge A and they start learning Latin, composition, science, fallacies and logic, and they learn to discuss. There's a lot of discussion in classical conversation. So even at the young age, when they're in the foundations class at age 4 of the mornings, they're going to do a presentation and they're going to show you something, and the other kids are going to listen, and the other kids are going to ask them questions, and they're going to answer those questions. So they're learning to listen. They're learning to ask good questions. We'll remind them in class. No, she told us that when she was giving the demonstration. Were you doing good at listening? And then they ask other questions. So they learn not only to present, but they learn to listen also. And then as they go through the next phase, um, into dialectic in around the fourth grade or age 9, they go into what we call the essentials programs. They will go to foundations of the morning still, and in the afternoons at that age they will stay after lunch and go to the essentials program, where they will do a writing class, some math games. So it doesn't matter what math level they're in. These are students, they're in about fourth through sixth grade. They're in one room together. There's not going to be any more than 12, 15 of them, usually, sometimes only 7 or 8. I had 7 in my class that I tutored this year. They're going to do essentials of the English language, which is a very detailed grammar program. They're going to do the math games, and then they're going to do a writing curriculum called Institute for Excellent in Writing, which is going to include history with it that goes along with what they're doing in foundations. So this year we were studying medieval history facts in foundations, and they moved into their essentials, and we did their grammar and their sentence diagramming and just really took apart sentences. I learned so much about English grammar that it was a little bit scary. Because I didn't learn any of that when I was in school, and I had to tell the kids, this is really tough for Mrs. Kaiser too. But we worked through it and learned 112 sentence structures, which was insane to me. I thought, there's no way we're getting through all this. But then we would play math games, and we had a lot of fun, and it's made to where the game can be played if they're on a fourth grade level of math or if they're on a seventh grade level of math. They can still play these games. And we would do that, and then we would move into our writing. And in our writing curriculum, it was really great because they didn't have to write totally off the top of their head. They learned how to take notes from something they had read, how to put it together and retell it using strong verbs. They couldn't use go and went. They had to use something like rambled or stumbled or another word to describe how the person walked. And they had to use strong ly adverbs and things like that. And that is the dialectic phase, and they are taught to think and question things at that stage. And there's a lot of discussion, and they give presentations with their papers, and it's just a really good time. And this happens one day a week in community day, and then you go home and you have assignments to do the rest of the week. Then when they move into challenge, they may still be in the dialectic stage in the first couple of years of challenge. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight is middle school and up. So starting in middle school, somewhere around age 12 or 13, they're going to go into challenge A. Um, and in challenge A, they're going to be doing their Latin. Um, and it starts slowly at first. It's Henley Latin level 1, which is a very old Latin curriculum. And they're going to work through Latin. Then they're going to go into exposition, which is their English composition. And it's going to start with a very, very basic 3-paragraph essay, and the paragraphs are only a couple of sentences each. And it's going to seem so basic that a mom's going to say, okay, I've put my kid in this class and they're going to learn nothing. But you will watch as it builds. They're doing these essays on books they are reading. So in challenge A, in the exposition strand or subject, and we call them strands in classical conversations, they will start 3 weeks before the school year starts. They will read a book. So then when the school year starts, the first week, they will talk about the book and they will learn about a chart to use to help them. So these are writing persuasive essays, and they're going to ask a question about the book. They're going to say something like, should Edmund have followed the White Witch? And then they're going to have an affirmative, a negative, and an interesting column. And they're going to give reasons he should have and reasons he shouldn't have. Then they're going to decide which side they are on. And they're going to write their essay based on that. Edmund should not have followed the White Witch for reasons X, Y, and Z. And they're going to write this essay from that. And they're going to do that for 3 weeks. So on the third week, they'll turn in their essay. During that 3 weeks, they're reading another book or listening to another book if you prefer audible books. And they will do, and then repeat the cycle. And they will do this for 6 or 7 essays throughout the year. Then they will go into their reasoning strand, which is analogies, where they learn to analyze and to do compare and contrast characteristics and analyze what they're hearing and what people are saying and how things compare. And then they're also going to do need something? Wondering if you talk to Jacob. No, I'm on live stream though. Sorry. So then they will do how to listen and how to communicate. The second semester of that strand, they will do the fallacy detective, Well, they will learn to recognize poor reasoning skills. They will learn to recognize when someone is giving them a red herring. They will just really, those two are really fun. It's not a lot of homework each week. It's maybe 15 minutes a day, but there is so much they learn. They learn to listen to the media, the news they read, the things they see on social media, and pick it apart and say, okay, does this person have a reasonable argument, or is this just some kind of a fallacy? What are they telling me, and why are they telling me, and what proof do they have? Um, and then they will do a what we call the logic strand, which is math. And in challenge A, they're going to use Math 8-7, which is an eighth grade pre-algebra type text, and they're going to become really strong with their fractions and decimals. And when they go into community day, that is the beginning of their week. So say they go into community day on Tuesday, that is the beginning of week 2. And their director, who is walking with you, is going to um, give them all 4 lessons. They are also going to bring a problem from their lessons the week before that they either didn't understand or that just blew their mind, and they've learned this amazing new fact and they get to demonstrate it for their friends, or they can ask the tutor, I just didn't understand this. I couldn't figure it out. Can you show me how to do this? So they're going to do that pre-algebra type math, then with a lot of fractions, decimals, and really building and forming their skills. Now, in that, as the parent, you're still the teacher, and we want to encourage you. So if you find that they need a lower math, if they need a higher math, or if they just need a different style curriculum than Saxon math, you're always welcome to use that. They can still bring problems from that for their tutor to help them solve, or to show the class, if they're doing a higher level math, look at what I've learned. This is great. This is where what you're learning last week applies when you get further down the road. And then for science, they will do what we call the research strand, and they will do the first part of the year is really amazing because they're researching everything. It's not a science curriculum text box set. They will be given a topic by their director, say it's on reptiles, and they will go home and they will find 2, 3, 4 resources about reptiles, and they will jot down 5 to 6 interesting things from each of those resources. They will make a fused outline. This will only take a few minutes, and then they take this fused outline, they write a little short paragraph combining all the resources, and they put a little bibliography in the MLA format. So they're learning MLA format. They're writing one little short paragraph, and then when they come back to class, they're going to present this paragraph to their class, telling their class what they learned about reptiles. And they're all going to have different sources. So they're all going to come in with different facts. And then they have the last strand. So you have 6 strands during your day at CC, which will start between 8:30 and 9 and will end around 3:30 or 4. They'll have an hour in each strand plus time for lunch, where they will stay with their tutor all day, and parents are welcome to join, or they are welcome to go to class with their other students. If they have younger students, of course, they're going to be in the class with them. But it is called cartography, and this is where they learn to draw the world. So you've heard of um, How to Eat an Elephant, One Piece at a Time, or whatever the book is, and I know it's on there. They will learn to draw the world by starting with Canada. And for a couple of weeks, they'll work on Canada and drawing Canada, labeling Canada, putting the capitals and states and landforms and different things about Canada. Then they'll move down to North America. Then they'll move down to South America and Central America, in different places, and they'll draw that. And then they'll move to another continent, and they'll spend a couple of weeks on each group that they learn to draw. But by the end of the year, what my son could do at the end of this year was he drew the entire world. Now, he didn't label every single country in the entire world. He didn't label all 196 or whatever in all their capitals, but he labeled a lot of them, maybe 60 or 70 countries. He can tell you about where anyone is. If we're sitting and talking and somebody says, I don't know, where's Uzbekistan or something, he's like, oh, it's near here in the Middle East, or it's here near Egypt, or wherever it may be. So, and I may have made up a country there, I don't know, but he knows about where they're at, and he drew almost the entire world by the end of the year. Back to the science strand, what I missed was, after the first semester of researching, they will move into the second semester, where they study human anatomy, and they will learn to draw the body, kind of like they do the world, and they will draw a piece. They will draw the skeletal system. They'll draw the muscular system. They'll draw the brain and the head, the facial structures. The next time they may draw the heart or the digestive system. So by the end of that semester, they can draw the entire body. Also in Challenge A, and like I said, this is 7th, 8th grade year, 12, 13-year-olds. They're going to do a science fair project that will start in November as they start going on break. The director will help them walk through that. Um, and the director I work with is April Shepard, and I will put the numbers up with this post so that you can contact us if you have more questions. But she will walk them through what to do, and then they will do something each week over the Christmas break and be ready to do science fair at the end of January, which is really neat. So that's kind of how Challenge A breaks down. So, and one of the things I didn't show you about these challenges are that are just amazing is you start with Challenge A in 7th or 8th grade, then you go to Challenge B, and then there's Challenge 1, 2, 3, and 4, which coordinate with 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grades. And here, if you can see in this catalog, and I'll be glad to send you one, are the ACT scores compared to the national average. So on the ACT, the yellow is the national average, and the blue are kids who completed challenge levels with classical conversations. So as you can see, the scores are much higher. And what's really cool about this is those two, or I guess 4 to about 6 points on the ACT can mean the difference in $10,000 or more worth of scholarships. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Um, so they complete Challenge A. And like I said, we have this catalog that goes through all of this. And I'll be glad to send you one. April will be glad to send you one. So they've completed Challenge A, and the challenge I'm directing this year would be your upper middle school, or as my son is doing, Challenge B as a freshman in high school. It is going to be slightly repetitive, but also it is going to be um, very in depth. So in Challenge A, we like to say that we're teaching the kids ownership. Each challenge has a theme, and in Challenge A is ownership. It's teaching them to take ownership of their own lessons, of their own work, of everything they should be doing, and teaching them not to be so reliant on mom or a teacher to have them do this. So they're learning some great core subjects. They're learning some great composition, which one of the main things I always tell everybody when they start homeschooling is concentrate on writing, math, and science. Because if you can write a composition, you can pass any college class like history or sociology, psychology, any of that stuff. If you can do math, you're going to move right on through college. And science, you need some background in science. You don't have to have a huge amount. You don't have to have the periodic table necessarily memorized, but to have had chemistry and stuff. And then the history and the geography and the psychology and all of that, they're going to teach you in college, but you need to be able to write about it. So that's one of your main things. So challenge A, they're learning ownership. They're learning to be responsible for themselves, responsible for their own work. You're going to get a guide from your director that's going to have a checklist for them to check every day. It's going to tell you day by day they need to do these math lessons and these Latin lessons, these debate lessons, so forth and so on. So then they move into challenge B, and in challenge B, it is often that we say ownership builds discipline. So our theme for challenge B is discipline, and we're teaching them self-discipline, how to work on their own and how to discipline themselves to schedule. A lot of the things in challenge B are scheduled. So I'm going to try to show you a screen share here, and let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, so I've got it. So we're going to show it in the screen. We're going to turn it on solo, and we're going to hope that this is working and that you will be able to hear me talking um, while I'm showing it. And I just want to double check that. Show it in the screen. We're going to turn it on solo, and we're going to hope that this is working and that you will be able to hear me talking. Okay, so you can hear me talking. I just wanted to make sure before I went on with this. So in challenge B, I'm going to scroll up, and I'm sure you all have questions. But like I said, it's ownership builds discipline. So let me go through some of the things that we do in challenge B, which, like I said, this is 8th or 9th grade. For most, it's 8th grade. If you're just starting out, like we did as an 8th grader in challenge, we went into challenge A as an 8th grader. We're going to do challenge B as a 9th grader. These courses can be counted as high school credit. You may have to buff up the science just a little bit, just bump it, but my son will be doing algebra 1. So that will be the only difference. So we're building discipline, and we start with logic. And in Challenge B, um, we teach Algebra 1 half. So your director is going to be teaching from the Algebra 1 half book, which is basically a repeat of the 8-7 book with a little more pre-algebra concept. And the reason we do this in classical conversations is because when they go into ninth grade, they do Algebra 1. In 10th grade, they do Algebra 2 and Geometry combined. So they get 2 math credits. So then they still moved into Advanced Math Trig in 11th grade, and they will move into Pre-Calculus or Consumer Math, whichever you choose, as a senior. But if your child is advanced and if they're like mine and they're going into ninth grade, they can go ahead and do Algebra 1. This will reinforce what they are doing at home. It will help them to remember some of the concepts they're learning. This is what the director is going to teach from, but your child can work in the math of your choosing if this is not the math for you. Some people prefer other math curriculums. Then we move on into our Latin. So in the fall of our Challenge B year, what we are going to do is repeat everything they did for the whole year in Challenge A. So in one semester, we're going to repeat all of Challenge A. So it's going to be a really fast, just boom, 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 go back over everything and really reinforce that Latin. And then in the spring, we're going to move on to learning a lot more about Latin. And then when they go into Challenge 1, the year after Challenge B, that first fall, they're going to repeat everything they learned in Challenge A and all the new stuff they learned in Challenge B in one semester before they move on to the new stuff. So this is a theme with classical conversations to make sure they're really grasping the concepts. And one of the things I have found I really like about Latin is that my son's grammar, his English grammar improved because when you do Latin, you have to break down the sentence and they don't use articles and their adjectives are in a different order. So you have to really know your parts and you have to know, is this verb being used this way? Is this noun being used as a direct object? Is it being used as an indirect object? How is the noun being used? Because you can't put it into English until you know. And in Latin, the noun has to agree with the verb in subject, mood, tense, and there's so much Latin. Now, don't be scared. To help moms with all of this, the directors hold throughout the summer meetings where we watch some Latin videos, we watch some logic videos, we watch some writing videos so that you are prepared before the school year ever starts. And then talking a couple of times a month, maybe we get together to prepare you. And then you have us. That's what makes this so great is you have a director to walk with you. You have a community to walk with you. You have 3 or 4 other moms who have children in the same class that you can lean on to help you. So if you're not strong in math, but you're really picking up on the science, you can help her child with science and she can help yours with math and you can walk with each other and you have your director. And what I found was my son, if he goes in and his director teaches it on Tuesday and he gets all 4 lessons, then the rest of the week, he really doesn't have to come to me for much in math. He just does his assignments and goes on. Um, so that is the Latin strand. Then we move on to the exposition composition for fall semester. And that is where they do the Lost Tools of Writing Level 1 essays. They're going to begin with essay number 2 in Challenge B. So they're going to use this Lost Tools of Writing Level 1 persuasive essays in Challenge A. When they come to Challenge B, they're only going to use it for the first semester. And they're going to do the same thing, except they're going to begin with essay 2, work through essay 7. I think they skip a couple of essays in there so that they can move on through latter essays that they didn't cover in Challenge A. So it is going to be a little more advanced. And the books that they read are going to be different. They're still going to be the Newbery Award-winning, just classic literature. So they're going to read The Phantom Tollbooth, Where the Red Fern Grows, The Hiding Place, Tanglewood Tales, some really good classic literature. And they're going to have to really take the books apart, digest them, think about them, think about the characters, the choices the characters made, decide should the character have made that choice or should they have made another choice and why. So my son wrote one on uh, this year and he had to really decide what the in the secret garden did the dad make the right decision by ignoring his son. You know, he really came up with a good defense of that. So it was very impressive. So then in the spring semester, they're going to move on in their exposition and composition, and they're going to be working on short stories. So we're going to read words aptly spoken, short stories, and that includes stories by Poe, Dickens, Tolstoy, etc. And this is getting to bridge you into the high school level of literature that they're really going to be digging into some deep literature. And the final project is really exciting because they're going to write their own short story throughout the year, and we're going to bind these for your student into an anthology that is a bound copy of what they did throughout the year. Um, so then we move on from there to our science. And once again, like the Challenge A Science, we do not have a science curriculum per se because they're going to start their lab sciences in Challenge 1 with physical science. They're going to move on to biology 1, then to chemistry, and to biology 2. So we are really just helping them to dig into science and learn to enjoy it. So in the fall, they're going to study the history of astronomy, and they're going to have weekly assignments during the guide. They're going to do class projects and final projects. And then in the spring, they're going to do origins. So they're going to first study the origin of the earth and creationism because we are a classical Christian community and we fully believe in creationism. And they're going to study the book Defeating Darwinism. And while they read Defeating Darwinism, they're going to learn to avoid the mistakes in the discussions about evolution. They're not going to be giving things that don't matter to the discussion. They're able to have a discussion and defend evolution with an apologetic style. And then they're going to move into Discovering Atomos, which is a book that is a basic introduction into chemistry at an atomic level. So they're going to be studying atoms and chemistry and things like that in the second semester. And that is going to completely prepare them to start into physical science the next year when they go into Challenge 1 and move on to biology 1, 2, chemistry. And again, you can beef up this science if you want to, add some padding around it. And all of this can count as a freshman year in high school, including the Latin, which would count as your foreign language. Now, here is the tough class for Challenge B. This is the introductory and intermediate logic. So in the fall, they do introductory logic. In the spring, they're going to do intermediate logic. And logic is the study of thinking, syllogisms, and all kinds of other things. Okay, thank you. Please go to the other room. So they are going to do the math formulas behind logic. They're going to analyze logic. And this is a high school level curriculum. So this is going to be tough for mom, for kids, for everybody. It is really tough. We put it here because you may not necessarily want to count this as a high school credit. But it's a great class. It's really strong, and it prepares them for the traditional logic that they are going to study when they get into high school and they are doing their economics and personal finance and history and all that. This logic is going to help them build on everything. So in the logic strand, they're going to learn about the square of opposition, validity versus truth, terms and premises and propositions, truth tables, formula proofs, and truth trees. So this is a very high thinking, high discussion class. And all of these strands are going to be about an hour each on community day. And then they're going to take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour at home 4 days out of the week. So you're going to go to community one day, and the other 4 days you're going to come home and work on all this at home. And you're going to spend probably 30 minutes to an hour per subject, maybe sometimes longer, depending on the student. Then my favorite part of Challenge B is we're not there yet, but is this debate strand. So the debate strand is kind of like your social studies or your history strand subject in a public school. So in the fall semester, they're going to do Noteworthy Americans from Benjamin Franklin to Martin Luther King Jr. They're going to combine history with current events. They're going to be studying Martin Luther King Jr. and seeing what's going on currently that ties in with that. So there's going to be a connection each week to the topics. Are freedoms and liberties the same? Whether technological process is always beneficial, stuff like that. And then their final project, they're going to memorize and deliver a speech from someone like Ronald Reagan or MLK Jr. or Thomas Edison or someone like that. So it's a really good strand of current events and history together, and that is the fall semester. In the spring semester, we move into mock trial. And this is the one the students really love because we are given a case, a real life case that happened. We're given all the paperwork and we study it and we analyze it, and they plan, and they will take on roles as attorneys and witnesses in prosecution and defense. And when they do this, they have to figure out, okay, if we end up being the prosecution in the actual mock trial, what is the defense going to use to tear us down? If we end up being the defense, what's the prosecution going to use to poke holes in our argument? So then we are going to meet. So we're going to take our team, our group, our classroom, of 4 or 5, and if we need to, we'll combine with another classroom so that we have enough people for the entire trial team, and we're going to go meet at the county courthouse with a real judge and real jurors, or the parents are going to act as jurors. We will find jurors, and we're going to meet there, and they're going to put on this entire trial from beginning to end. They're going to enter their own defense. Even if the person in the real trial pled guilty, they may say we're going to plead not guilty, but whatever they do. But so they're actually going to go to the courthouse and do a mock trial. So this really teaches them a lot about the justice system, how it works, laws, and all of that. So that's just really exciting to me, is the mock trial and getting to be in front of a real judge and do all that. So what you can expect is the first semester is going to be a little bit easier because a lot of it is repeat, but that's also good for students that are just coming in. So if you've never been in classical conversations before, you can still jump right in to Challenge B in 8th or 9th grade and get your credits and still keep up, because everybody's kind of refreshing what they learned the year before. The second semester, we're heading off on brand new stuff, and you've got to really be self-disciplined. You're going to have to dedicate some time. The students are going to have to learn. And Mom, the whole point of this, or Dad, whoever's listening, the whole point of this is we are going to take them to a new level. To by the time they're in high school, they're going to go to their community day once a week. They're going to hear from their tutor. They're going to come home. They're going to sit down. They're going to do their own work. It's going to be, these topics are interesting, and it's stuff they want to do and dig into and learn about. But also, it's going to teach them to be responsible for themselves. So they're only going to come to you when they have a question, like, I'm really stuck on this math problem, or I just can't figure out this part of logic right here. But they're going to learn discipline, self-discipline, to work on their own. They're going to have plenty of opportunities to be creative. Like I said, if you start in classical conversations young, like my younger kids did this year at 4 and 5, they're going to be presenting from the beginning. But even if they jump in and Challenge B, they're only in a small class of 4 or 5 of their own peers, one tutor, and just a really close-knit little community. So they're going to be discussing topics. They're going to be presenting. And they're going to learn to public speak. So what we see is a lot of our challenge kids come out, and they're way ahead of other peers when they get to college in their ability to present, to discuss these topics with their professors, to have a direct conversation about what's going on and what they're learning, and to ask the right kinds of questions so that they understand it better. Also, they're going to have deadlines, and some things you're going to do at the same time, and they've got to learn to manage their time. Again, they've got to look ahead, plan accordingly. One of the things they're going to have to learn is to ask Mom, okay, what are we doing on these days? Because I need 5 hours to do my schoolwork. And it may be that Mom says, well, on Friday we're supposed to go to get hogs. That's what we're doing tomorrow. And so you're going to be gone for 3 hours. So you need to plan accordingly to either do some extra work on Wednesday and Thursday, or maybe you need to do some extra work on Saturday. So they learn to plan and manage and to be consistent and to get their work done. Again, one of our main things with classical conversations is you as the parent or the teacher. So you may have to scale it back. This year in exposition, my son, I wanted him to learn to write a really good, well-thought-out essay. So I did not feel like we could do one every 3 weeks. We did one maybe every 6 weeks. We did not do all the essays. And that was okay, because the ones he wrote were amazing and outstanding compared to what he had written in the past. So we just really dug deep into what we were doing, even though it took us a little more time. And that is the beauty of homeschooling. You can scale it. If your child is struggling with math, then you can slow down, because even after the school year ends, you can keep moving on through math the rest of the summer. So take your time. Don't fail them on a lesson. Let them go back and repeat the lesson until they grasp the concept before you move on to the next concept. And do this with every subject. Scale it down to what you need to do for you and for your student. You're going to read the literature this summer. I know with our communities that Ms. Shepard and I are working with, and she is the Challenge A director, and she couldn't be on here tonight, but I'm the Challenge B director. And what we're going to be doing is having book club meetings with other challenge groups, and we're going to get together, and the students are going to read the books ahead of time and discuss them. So we may meet at a park if all these restrictions are lifted. We may meet at a pool. We may meet at somebody's house. Again, if we're allowed to, it may be over Zoom, and the kids are going to pre-read the books that they're reading next year, and then they're going to have discussions about them, so that when they read them in the fall and they go to do papers over them, they've already had these great discussions about the books, and they really know what's going on, and it takes less of their time. So like I said before, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. That is what we're doing here. We're taking little bitty pieces and breaking it down and digesting it. So they're going to be given bits and pieces. Latin is going to come to them in little pieces until they can digest it, and then they're going to move on and get another bite, and so forth and so on. I'm sorry, I have the hiccups. So there are 6 strands every year. Your exposition strand, which is your English, your composition, your writing. Your reasoning strand, which would be like logic or analogies or fallacies. Your research strand, which is your science. Your debate strand, which is your social studies, your geography, your history. Your logic, which is math, and your grammar, which is Latin, which counts as your foreign language. And they're going to continue that on through Challenge 1. They're going to repeat Henley Latin 1 again, and then move into Henley Latin 2. And then in sophomore and junior, they're just going to keep on with the Latin. They're just going to keep on with the exposition and lost tools of writing and great literature. So with that, I'm going to ask, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments on this video. I'm going to hide that now for a minute. So if you have questions, the video will have a comment section where we open. I will be monitoring that, so you can come back and ask me questions. If you have, I'm going to add the crawler here and give you a chance to get the phone numbers. April Shepard is the Challenge A director. I'm going to put this in the comments. I'm Heather Kaiser. I'm the Challenge B director here in this area. And we know the others. If our community is not the one you need to be in, then we can get you in contact with who you need to be. You can contact either one of us by phone or text us at those phone numbers. These catalogs, we have lots of these catalogs, and this is going to tell you everything. I'm just going to do a quick flip through this catalog. So as you can see, there's a lot of good articles. Why I should consider homeschooling. And it's going to go through everything, the vision of homeschooling. Let me find some pages here to share with you. And it's going to go through, am I good enough to homeschool? Am I thorough enough? Am I smart enough? What can I do here? We're going to talk about the grad stats and intended majors. And then it's going to go through each level of classical conversations, from foundations to essentials. Scribblers is something you do at home, ages around 3 to 8. Foundations is 4+, essentials is 9+, and then the challenge level starting at age 12. And there's going to be a section in this book that explains each of these to you and why they're important. What you're going to do in community every day. There's a chart that tells you what you're going to do in community and then what you're going to do at home. And our books, our guides are broken down the same way. So this is the relationship we develop in classical conversations. There's the tutor, the student, and the parent, and we're all working together. It's a partnership. We are not your child's teacher. You are the teacher. And what we are is the lead learner, and we are learning with your child. You are learning. Like I said, we will have classes for moms. And as the lead learners, the mom and the director or the tutor, your child is going to be learning also, and they're going to have 2 people that hold them dearly and love them and want to see them succeed. And you're going to come to me and you're going to say, okay, we just can't do this much. We're going to do this much. Or this is really not enough for us. We're going to do more. And I'm going to say, you're the mom. You're the teacher. You're the dad. You're the teacher. This is up to you. Only you know your child as well as you do. But I'm also going to be there when you say, I don't understand Latin. I'm going to say, okay, let's sit down and go over it. And we're going to chat about it. And we're going to figure it out. So it's going to tell you with each strand, here's essentials, and that doesn't cover foundations and essentials much, but those are ages 4 through 12. And then challenge. So then this catalog, this really thick catalog, is going to go through each level of the challenge, what they're doing, why we're doing it the way that we do, and what they're going to learn. Here's the challenge B. And as you can see, here's our little flow chart. And God is in the center of everything we do with classical conversations. So it is a unapologetically Christian homeschool, and the curriculum we use is going to be from a Christian base. And then also in this book is more information about our dual enrollment program. When they get into upper level of high school, they can graduate with several college credits, and we can also tell you how to do that through the state colleges, which is what my kids did. We've got help with how to run your homeschool manager, homeschool counselor. There's going to be forms in here that tell you what books you need. You can order those from Classical Conversations, and they have them highlighted. And then you're going to find pages like the ones I've been looking at tonight. And that's going to be, here's your challenge B. And it's going to say you need these books, and your tutor, or your director, I'm sorry, was a tutor this year in Essentials, and it's called Director when you move up. It's going to tell you what you need to get. These books, this book, you may not need this one. This one is mainly for the tutor, the director. And so if you want one of these catalogs, the Classical Conversations 2020 catalog, then let myself or Miss April Shepard know. We'll be glad to mail you one. We will be glad to sit down one-on-one with you when the restaurants open back up to meet with you in a restaurant and sit and chat. Just let us know what you need and what questions you have, and we will be glad to give you all the information up front and discuss this more with you. If you feel like you want to continue homeschooling and you're just not sure where to go because your child has reached middle school and it's going to be a wild ride, teenage hormones, I will tell you that Miss Shepard has two boys that she has homeschooled all the way through, and they went through most of the challenge levels themselves, graduated with some great ACT and SAT scores. One is in the military, and one is in college to be a flight missionary or something like that. I don't want to tell it wrong, but he is actually out in Washington State. I have two sons that graduated. We did not do the challenge levels, but they did graduate, started in public school and homeschooled for many years. And one is graduating this spring with his bachelor's in mechanical engineering. The other is going to be doing, he graduates with his associate's and moves on to UT in plant sciences. And my daughter graduates this year. And let me tell you, I still don't know anything about Algebra 1 in math. That's why I walk with other people. That's why I've joined the community. And the classical conversation communities, they can only be so big. We have limits on the numbers that are allowed in. And when it reaches that limit, then someone branches off and starts a new community at a new place, maybe even in the same area. Some are within just a few miles of each other because one grew and they need to start another one just down the road. To keep the community small, to keep it tight, close-knit, so that you've always got someone to walk with you, so that you've always got a small classroom size, and so that everybody can focus on helping each other and just holding hands as we walk through. So that's all the information I have tonight, and I went a little bit longer than I intended, but I hope that helps in some way to show you that you can do this. Anybody. If I can do this, the girl that still can't add 2 plus 2 most days can walk her kids through and get them into college and great scores and can homeschool, then so can you, and all you need is the right people to walk with as you do this, and your kids get a good classical education. They get an education like your grandparents, my parents, and I would have received. They get a Christian base, so you're building that foundation. You're building everything on God, on the foundation of God, and moving up from there, and you're still getting all of their core subjects. They're getting the math, they're getting the science, they're getting everything they need, but they're building it on the foundation of God first, because God is the center of everything we do at Classical Conversations. Our little diagrams have God right in the center, and our goal is to know God and to make him known. So we want to give the kids a thorough, good education that's going to excel in college, and at the same time, or in trade school, whatever they go after, if they want to start their own business. Many of our students graduate and start their own business. They're entrepreneurs. They don't even, so whatever they want to do, we want to give them that opportunity to do that. But first, we want them telling everyone about God. We want to make God known, and we want God to be known in everything we do. We want to be able to ask the right questions and answer those questions from a biblical perspective. So there may not be Bible in class, but everything we do is based around the knowledge that God is the creator of us and everything in education. And our job as parents, is given to us in Deuteronomy, is to teach our children when we rise up and when we lie down and any time in between. Our job is to teach our children. And that is your job, and that is what God has given you to do. And we walk together to do that. So I hope this has been informative. And if you have any questions, you can contact me. Find me on Facebook, find me on email, find me on YouTube, leave comments, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.